We'll call the City Council regular meeting to order for Monday, August 6, 2007. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call. Tracy, please.
Arbogast.
Here.
Garnos.
Here.
Gisselbeck.
Here.
Heller.
Here.
Meisenheimer.
Here.
Solberg. Solom. Walder.
Here.
Wilkins. And York.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Agenda item number 1 is approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting that was held on July the 16th, 2007.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 is the consideration of the transfer of 2 alcoholic beverage licenses from Bruce Burkhart to Jeffrey Burkhart. And as you may recall, Bruce passed away here last month, and so these are being transferred to his son. We'll begin with number A, which is a retail on-off sale malt beverage license at Willow Creek Casino, 1341 9th Avenue Southeast. We'll begin with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? If not, I'll close the public hearing and request council action for the transfer. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the transfer.
Motion by Alderman York. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Walder. All those, any additions or corrections? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number B is the retail on-off sale malt beverage license at Players Casino, 916 and a half 9th Avenue Southeast. And I'll begin with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? If not, I'll close the public hearing and go to council action. Is there a motion for the transfer? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer, seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any additions or corrections or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 3 is the vacation of the 25 feet access and utility easement at Lot 2, Watertown Hospitality Edition. And we'll begin with the public hearing, and Rick, you'll speak first.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. This is a public hearing for the vacation of a piece of property. It's actually a dedicated easement. This application is brought to you by your petitioner, James Bervin, the president of the company there, who the consultant is Ardell Austin Engineering Company Incorporated. You can see this on the screen that we've got up. It's the same attachment that we've included in your agenda packet. This small area in blue right here is a 25-foot utility and access easement located on this piece of property, but it provides access from the cul-de-sac up to these back lots. What's being suggested is the vacation of this 25-foot access and utility easement. In replace of that, the petitioner is suggesting, or has offered, to dedicate a 66-foot wide street right-of-way, which is exactly what our subdivision ordinance requires for a full street. So we see that as a pretty good trade in this instance. I guess that's we haven't seen the plat documents yet, but we do recommend that the approval of this request, as does the Plan Commission. We do recommend that you accept the offer of the right-of-way dedication with the conditions that we talked about, that the affected areas need to be replatted. This is going to be to support an application for a building permit for an expansion of the facility located right here. It's the Comfort Inn, where the hand is located right now. So we're with that. Again, staff recommends the approval of the request for the vacation with conditions that we get the right-of-way dedication that is shown in the green here for a street to provide for access to those back lots, and that the affected properties be replatted within 1 year of the effective date of your resolution for vacation.
Thank you, Rick. Is there anyone else to speak to the issue? Rick, all those requirements that you wanted are included under Resolution 0742, is that correct?
That is correct. If I might, there is perhaps a little bit better way of wording the resolution, and something that we've seen in some of our past resolutions, that if the applicant in fact fails for whatever reason, the replatting does not occur, then we don't have to come back for another action on your part to consider this. So what it might, in resolution number 07-42, again, we accept the 66-foot wide public right-of-way to replace the easement that were replat prior to the application of the building permit. And item number 3 would say that the resolution shall be deemed to have no force and effect and shall be deemed rescinded with no further action of the city council if for any reason the replatting doesn't occur and it's in fact not recorded with the register of deeds within 1 year from the effective date of this resolution. Mouthful? You
That's a
smiled
mouthful,
like,
that's correct.
Wow. It looks better in writing.
Okay,
yeah.
good
It's
enough.
not so bad.
Okay, I guess what we're asking is what will happen is this will allow the Comfort Inns to add on about, what, 19 rooms, I believe?
I guess I can't recall right now.
I believe that's how many it was, so. Is there anyone else to speak to the issue? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and go to council action. Is there a motion then for the approval of resolution number 07-42 with the requirements that Rick had reiterated?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Garnos, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Heller. Is there any additions or corrections or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you,
Thanks.
Rick. Item number 4 is the proposed lease agreement with the Transportation Security Administration for property located within the Watertown Municipal Airport Terminal. We'll begin with the public hearing, and Eric, I'll let you speak first.
Okay, in front of you is a continuation from our last 2-year lease with the TSA. And just to sign on for another 2 years. That's all the information for now. You can open for the public hearing.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak to the issue? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and request council action for the agreement with the lease agreement with the TSA for the property.
Mayor, if I
Yes.
could, I'm wondering if you could maybe let Eric provide a little bit of
Sure.
detail with regard to what the terms of the lease are going to be.
Yes, Eric, do you want to do that?
Sure, no problem. It's going to be a 2-year lease, just as like the current one is that expired at the end of the month or last month. This one will expire July 31st of 2009, and it will include a prorate or an increase in the amount of rent that they are currently paying now, according to what the new lease provisions are. Is there anything in particular that you wanted to cover, Stan?
No, just as the council knows, anytime the city's going to lease property for more than 120 days and accrue rent greater than $500, we're required to hold a public hearing. So I just wanted you folks to know that we've reached that threshold. So Eric's explained that. Thanks.
How much is it, Eric? How much is the lease for? Can you say, or?
Well, I don't know. It's for enough. I mean, do we? Okay, it's for $13,140 per year for the first year, $13,392 for the second year.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion then for the approval of the lease? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5 is the first reading of ordinance number 07-21, amending chapter 5.02, flood damage prevention, to adopt and implement the September 28, 2007 flood insurance rate map revisions and flood insurance study report. Rick?
Thank you. Nothing simple and short in the issues that I'm bringing forward to you this evening. The title is even long on this one, but again, this is first reading of ordinance 07-21. This is an ordinance amending chapter 5.02, which is our flood damage prevention ordinance. When the purpose of this ordinance is to adopt and implement the September 28, 2007 flood insurance rate map revisions and the associated flood insurance report. And we have scheduled for August 20th City Council meeting, the actual second reading and public hearing, and anticipated favorable action of the City Council to move us forward and keep us on the course that we need to maintain to remain a member community in good standing with the National Flood Insurance Program. So if there's any questions.
Any of the council members have any question for Rick? This will be a process that will be continuing on now, Rick, and then finally will end when in September?
Yes, this will be effective around September 15th after we get it adopted. And that's assuming the anticipated favorable action by the council on the 20th. We'll public notice, and around the 15th, our ordinance will become effective. On September 28th, for the purposes of establishing and making the determinations whether or not a structure and property are either in or out of the floodplain, the FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program will use the maps at that point, September 28th. But we've already been directed as of March 28th that we have to use the information as best available information. So it's quite honestly, it's a process that our community has been living with for, our project number is 99-20, which indicates we started this effort in 1999. It's gone through a number of iterations. We've had some really good mapping come out as a result of this. The best mapping that we've had came out in December of 2005, and that's put us on notice that within about a year and a half, and that's where we are today. We're going to be adopting a map and a new study report. So.
Rick, have you been working with some of the individuals around the community that have had questions about their own particular property? I know there was a lot of those questions around.
Every day.
Every day,
Yeah,
okay.
every day we have, and that's welcome, and that's a perfect thing. That's what people.
Well, that's what we try to do, is refer
Yeah.
them to you guys, because you're the expertise we use to get the calls first, but
I would guess
just-
3 to 6 people a day, just to look at the
Great.
tools that have been developed and provided us by FEMA and First District and our engineering department. It's really nice to be able to take this map that we've had, even preliminary in nature, and overlay it on our aerial photographs in our GIS system. And I think a lot of people are finding that real helpful, and we hope they are anyway.
Right.
So.
okay, thank you.
Rick, I got a question. I was wondering if you would want to inform the viewing audience on building permits and start of construction under R on this. If there's anybody anticipating doing any construction or remodeling or that.
Under R, the definition of start of construction. And quite honestly, we're already there in terms of the 180 days. Do we have to comply with the new mapping? Yes, because the start of construction suggests the 180 days applies. Are you looking for a window now versus when we be under the new map? Is that what you're after?
Yeah, and
I think we're already.
by getting a building permit, and you have to start 180 days after that.
Yes, I see, yes, within the anticipation or the expectation under this flood damage prevention ordinance is you submit a building permit application, city staff does the things that we have to do to review that, and the anticipation is that within 180 days you'll start that construction that's being permitted, yes.
Any other questions for Rick? If not, thank you, Rick, very much. Moving on then to agenda item number 6 is the first reading of ordinance number 07-23. This is the rezoning Lot 2 Slominski Second Edition from R3 multifamily residential to a C2 local commercial district. And Rick?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we've included in your packet the map that shows the surrounding zoning, and you can see the site of Slominski's lot, Slominski Second Edition Lot 2. The proposal is in red to rezone that from the existing R3 to a C2, which is consistent with their preliminary plan. The ordinance that has been included in your packet and of which we're having the first reading this evening is intended to implement the petitioner's request for rezoning and that of the Plan Commission's recommendation. So we'll talk about that on August 20th as well.
Thank you, Rick. Does anyone have any questions? If not, then thank you, Rick.
Thanks.
Agenda item number 7 is a resolution number 07-41. It's approving the sale of a portion of Lot 2, Block 2 of the Airport Industrial Addition to the Watertown Development Corporation for an industrial development purpose. Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. As you folks know, we've discussed recently the possibility of the city conveying some property that's located directly adjacent to Custom Fabricators. It's north on 14th Avenue. If you some of you recall, that's the location that was previously discussed as a possible future armory site, and that's no longer going to be the location of the future armory. So the Watertown Development Corporation was approached by Custom Fabricators, wondered if there was any opportunity to acquire that property that's adjacent, and they made us an offer, as you folks recall, and you authorized acceptance of the offer. It consists of a 5.4 acre parcel, and the agreed upon purchase price was $12,000 per acre. So as you folks know, these kind of transactions involve two steps. The city conveys the property first to the Watertown Development Corporation. That's the resolution before you tonight. And contemporaneous with our closing the sale with the Watertown Development Company, then they will then convey title to Custom Fabricators. And I know Craig is here to discuss it, and as we have in agreements past, one of the terms is that construction must occur. In this case, in this agreement, it's proposed that they have to begin construction within 48 months of closing the purchase. My understanding is that they're in the process of constructing a $2 million expansion right now. They want the benefit of a little time before they'd have to further expand. But again, Craig is here, and I know he's probably champing at the bit to visit with you about it.
Greg, do you have any further thing to add to us?
Thank you, Craig Atkins, Focus Watertown. I guess after that introduction, Stanton took most of my bullets, but the one thing I will tell you is I've had some discussions with the owners just recently, and they intend to start construction on another facility there as quickly as possible, maybe as early as next spring. But they would also like the latitude to allow them to grow into this. Their business has just been expanding tremendously, and Stan had mentioned the $2 million construction that they're currently undergoing. After that's complete, they are pretty much landlocked, and if you recall, they're basically locked between the airport on one side and their neighbor to the east. So this is a way for us to, I believe, as a community, to really help this company take advantage of that property and actually put it to some good use. It's been sitting there idle for years and years. So short of that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions. I think as Stanton mentioned, we do have a revisionary interest, which says that if they don't do the project within a certain period of time, it comes back to us, the city. And short of that, I guess I'd be happy to try to answer any questions anybody might have additionally.
Any council members have any questions? If not, then I'd ask for a motion for the approval of resolution number 07-41.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Gizelbeck. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Stanton. Agenda item number 8 excuse me, is the sanitary sewer flow monitoring, the inflow and infiltration study presentation by Earth Tech. Mike Berger.
Thank you, Mayor Fox, a member of the council. Earth Tech was contracted to perform an inflow and infiltration study to assess the condition of our sanitary sewer system. This study began with Earth Tech performing flow monitoring in 2005. City staff then continued to monitor flows in 2006. Due to 2005 being a rather dry year, we wanted to capture data from more wet events. Then in 2007, staff continued to monitor two basins of the system to observe the system perform during the significant rains we saw this spring. So with the flow monitoring that was performed by Earth Tech and the city, a successful study has been completed, and Tom Najedla with Earth Tech is here tonight to provide a brief summary. And I'll start this up for you.
This summary is probably a little longer than you want to hear, so I'm going to brief it up. I'm going to run through some of the slides pretty quick. If you have any questions as I go through this, just feel free to shout them out or raise your hand and I'll bring them up. So, and this is basically, we started as a 2005 study. It extended in 2006 because of the dry weather in 2005. 2006 flow monitoring was done by using water tower meters. We analyzed the data. So basically infiltration, some of this stuff is this is EPA's definition. Infiltration is groundwater that gets into the sanitary sewer system. It's a lot less important, I shouldn't say important, but a lot less significant as far as impact on the sanitary sewer capacity than inflow is. Usually there are a lot less quantities as far as flow into the sanitary sewer. Everybody has infiltration. It's a little harder to treat, a little more costly to treat. Inflow, again, this is EPA's definition, and I'm going to blow by some of this stuff. Inflow is rainfall or snow melt that gets into the sanitary sewer. If you get a big gush of water, that's what inflow is. Typically comes when you get the more severe rains. If you have real dry weather, you don't get the inflow. And it has the most important impact in the sanitary sewers as far as causing backups or sanitary sewer overflows. The study we did involved flow and rainfall monitoring for 3 months in 2005. Lift station flow analysis, data analysis of all of that to identify I&I and any capacity issues that we're involved with I&I causing limited capacity in the sewer. We had 12 meters in '05. Because of the dry weather, we put an additional 6 meters in, and we put 6 meters in that Watertown owns. Again, we had dry weather in '05, so we did the same thing in '06. As a result, we had some decent rains. We didn't have any 10-year events or anything, but we had some good rains. And we used our rain gauge and some NOAA rainfall data. The lift station analysis was pretty much the same thing, looking for infiltration and inflow. And we used 3 years of data for this because the data is collected at the treatment plant. We used 5 rain events. I'm going to just go right by this. Fairly dry weather. We didn't see a lot of real significant rains. The last one showed a 2-inch 24-hour rain was the biggest rain over those 3 years. Still, you should see something in that type of thing if inflow is a problem. And some of the analysis here is the same as what we have from the flow monitoring, so I'm going to keep going here. We match up flow in a sanitary sewer versus how much rainfall fell. That's what the flow monitoring is. You do. You match up wet weather versus dry weather flows, peak flow versus your base flow or average 24-hour flow. And we're looking at peaking factors. If you get a real big spike, that means you have a lot of inflow or potential inflow. And as the rains, infiltration also increases because the groundwater comes up, but it's not as significant as inflow. So that's some of the stuff. Again, this is a reiteration of what we had, 12 meters, 6 meters by Watertown, 6 meters again by Watertown in 2006. And then as a follow-up to that, we also had 3 meters put in by Watertown this year. We really didn't include this as part of our study and part of our report, but we had a wet spring here, and so we wanted to see what was happening in the sanitary sewers. They pretty much confirmed what we came up with in our results. Typically, we're looking at peaking factors as one of the key elements of identifying problems in the sanitary sewer. 6 to 1 is an industry standard. 6 to 1, 1 hour peaking factor. That means flow is 6 times more than normal is what a peaking factor is. That indicates excessive inflow. The greater the peaking factor, the more likely you are to have II. One site had a 4 to 1 peaking factor. That's not bad. Typically, sewers are designed to handle 4 times the capacity of the sewer as they're done. So, in essence, you're not in bad shape. All the rest of the peaking factors were less than 3 to 1. Here's the peaking factors. You see the 1 hour peaking factor in this table. Those are extremely low. 4 is not high at all. We recommend that, actually they have already done it, gone and looked upstream of this. You maybe could isolate one particular area where there's more inflow. In 2007, they did the same thing. They didn't find anything either. And I have some graphs at the end to show you, just so you see. As you can see here, there's nothing significant in any of these. Those are pretty good numbers, actually. The recommendations. 1, you still need to continue to attack II. II is an ongoing problem. If you ignore it, it's only going to get worse. Sump pump removal. Over the winter, some of the sump pumps are connected to the sanitary sewer. That's clear water being pumped into the sanitary sewer, which goes to the treatment plant, and the city has to pay to treat that water. EPA, I don't think they'd say anything, but if it came to capacity issues, that would be a problem, just so you're aware of that. You're paying to treat that water. Right now, the collection system department is televising and cleaning the sewers, and they're rehabbing the system as they go through it. Well, that's why you're probably fairly low with the II. The collection system department is doing an excellent job, and I worked with Daryl Hopkins quite a bit looking at his records and whatnot, and they're very good, and they're doing a very good job, just so, you know, they should be commended for their work. I'll skip through this. These were the worst areas where we said that you should look at, if you're going to look any further, this is how we would divide it up. None of them, again, were very bad, but you maybe could find something upstream of where we metered by looking at F2 253. That's a manhole number. So that basically tells you where you can look a little more. This is from Mike and Daryl and those people that check areas. II reduction. Right now you're televising and rehabbing all the mainline sewers. Manhole inspections is something else that you should consider doing, and I've discussed it with Mike a little bit. As you go through and televise a sewer, inspect the manholes. There's 3 components to a sanitary sewer, generally. Mainline sewers, manholes, and then laterals. You're addressing the sanitary sewer collection, the mainline sewers, very adequately. I mean, more than adequately, very proactively. You're repairing those as you're going, but the manholes still could be a significant source as they deteriorate. I mean, the infrastructure in the United States is getting over 100 years old, and so it's a key element that, and I talked with Mike about it, as they're televising lines, have them inspect the manholes. That's what this is all about. Again, sump pump removal, I don't need to beat a dead horse, but you're paying to treat clean water. And that's, usually people frown on that. And it also limits the capacity. If you're pumping clear water flow into the sanitary sewer, that limits the capacity of any other flow to get through that pipe. So it's a problem. In the long run, it's a problem. At this point in time, you're running it in winter, so the inflow isn't a big deal. But it could be you get a major rainfall on top of snow melt in the spring and you have all the sump pumps connected, that could lead to some problems. So it's just something to be aware of. Again, continued cleaning and televising. And again, as they televise it, they're identifying defective parts of the system and they're repairing them, lining the sewers or doing spot repair, replacing sewers. That's why you have fairly low II, and that's a good thing. And this is just a real brief summary. Low indication of II, low peaking factors, well-maintained system, continue the CCTV and the rehab, maybe include some manhole inspection. This is some work that was done in 2007, again with Mike and his crews. And you can see the rainfall doesn't show up real clearly, but these are some of the rains. There's 4 days early on in this graph. You should see a spike if there's a problem in a sanitary sewer. This is one site. Then we look further upstream from here, same type of thing. You see a little bit of a blip there, but not a lot at the earlier rainfall. But then again, you get almost an inch of rain later in that graph, and there's no peak. That's a good thing. And again, this is the same type of picture. We're not really seeing a lot of peaks. This is over 3 years of study, so it's pretty good shape. Any questions?
We got a pretty tight system.
Yeah, I think you're in pretty good shape. I think it's a proactive part of the collection system crew. I really do. I think they're lining, and I saw his whole list of what they've done and what they're TVing, and they're doing a good job.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council members or any comments you'd like to make? If not, thank you very much for a
Thank you for having
very
me.
good educational thing on I&I.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on then to item number 9 is the adoption of the 2007 update to the long-term capital improvement plan. And Tracy?
Thank you. Tonight is the night that's scheduled for the council to adopt the update for the capital improvement plan that will lay out the anticipated capital expenditures for the next 4 years. We spent quite a bit of time at our last meeting going over the details of this, so I won't do that again tonight. I'm sure you're thankful for that, but if you do have any questions, I'll certainly try to answer those. As far as I know, there really hasn't been a lot of feedback. We did at our most recent city finance committee meeting, there was some follow-up and some clarifications that were provided for the finance committee, but at least no recommendations for changes came out of that meeting, and to my knowledge there have been no recommended changes put forth to this point. So with that, I'll be quiet and try to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions from any of the council members? Tracy? If not, then I'd entertain a motion then for the approval of the adoption of the 2007 update to the long-term capital improvement plan.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Heller, seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 10 is the approval of construction contract change orders. We have several. Number A is change order number 1. Bituminous Paving Incorporated, that's for the landfill compost pad improvement project in the amount of $61,439.47. Mike Berger.
The city budgeted and planned a project to rehabilitate the landfill compost pad. Helms and Associates were contracted to design, bid, and provide the construction engineering services for the project. The city also applied for a 50-50 grant from the Solid Waste Management Grant Program and was awarded a grant not to exceed $109,000 to assist us in funding this project. In summary, the project was necessary to raise low areas that held compost leachate in ponds, not allowing it to flow to the pond, or in some areas redirect compost leachate where it was running away from the pond towards stormwater areas, and also to repave some areas where the asphalt had become checkered and allowed leachate to flow through the asphalt surface. The project has now been completed, and Jay Cook with Helms and Associates is here tonight to provide a brief overview of the change order completing the project.
Good evening. I will try to keep this brief. If I go a little too fast, you can feel free to stop me at any time and back me up. First of all, I just want to show you on this plan, right now we have two areas. One is the original compost pad, which I believe was constructed in about 1995, 96, somewhere in there. And then the 2002 compost pad, which was recently reconstructed or added on to the original compost pad. What I'm going to show is the area in pink there that's showing is basically what we had surveyed originally and bid as part of the project. And what we were looking for is trying to get these areas graded and drained. We weren't looking to go through and redo the entire pad, but we were just looking to do some regrading to get things to drain. So the long streaks that you see coming down, those areas are actually the drainage paths into the compost pond. The areas in blue, those areas are areas that we identified during construction and decided that we had to make corrections to those areas to have a functioning pad. The areas in green were identified also during construction. However, they were identified immediately when we went out to stake the compost pad for the contractor. The first area, this is the main entrance into the compost pad. It's 5,900 square feet. It was really broke up, and we had areas of actual heaving into that road. This is actual road that comes into the compost pad. This spring, very, very wet spring, ended up hauling a lot of loads of compost water out, and we did that before frost had come out. I think that is one of the reasons that this area did break up so bad. However, we had some heaving. This is all built over existing waste, and actually Mike's pickup would actually scrape if he went a little bit too fast on one spot. It was that heaved up. We had a bad spot in there. But this was something that came up this spring. It was not in the original survey that we did back in October of 2006. Second area, this is actually in the newer compost pad area that was in 2002. It's a very long strip. It was just broken up and heaved. We never identified this with the survey because it was covered up with compost. Our main function, what we were looking for, was on the original pad. This, they'd moved all their composting over into the newer pad. It was covered up. Once they started moving compost when we were during construction, this area showed up. Right along with that, area 3, which was adjacent to that one. Another area we identified. Area 4, this is actually in one of the lower spots of the drainage. This area had silted in very heavily. I'm going to church camp this week, so very heavily. And this area is very silted up. Drainage wasn't going out. This area is actually broken up, and there was a hole. Once we moved the compost, there was a hole there. Same thing with area 5. It was basically the exact same thing. Area 6, this was cleared down on those long paths I was telling you about. Well, on the compost pad that was built in 2002, we also have 2 of those drainage paths. And because of the spring, the wet weather, the wet rain, the hauling of the leachate, well, you can see the hose there, these areas also had some breakup. And once, like I said, once we got there, got working, these were areas that we identified. Area 6 and area 7 were both the same. Now you can look at this and say, well, they sure tore up a lot of area, but these were areas that were broke up, loose, and we had to fix them, you know, to be able to operate. You can see some checkering there, and I mean, had we just really wanted to go hog wild, we could have taken out a lot more asphalt. But we really just tried to address the areas that absolutely needed to be repaired. As I told you, the areas in green were identified right away. Area 8 in the upper left-hand corner, that area had actually settled about 3 inches since our survey in October. Now, I don't know if that's just from the freeze thaw, you know, October versus the spring or whatever, but we couldn't get it to drain. So we actually had to go in there. We did some tear out in that area, and we also did some overlay in that area to make sure that those areas actually drained out. Otherwise, we would have been ponding water right next to our road, wouldn't have lasted at all. Area 9 on the very south end, I'm sorry, it would be on the east end of the compost pad. That area previously drained off the compost pad. We tilted it and created a valley gutter to hold that water on the compost pad. However, we decided that we needed to put an extra wedging of some asphalt in that area to increase that slope. With some of the major rainfalls that Mike had there right after we put our first lift of asphalt, we actually had water running right up against the berm that we constructed there. And that's not what we were trying to get. We wanted the water to stay on the pad for the most part. So we increased that with a little wedge of asphalt before we did our final lift. Area 10, it was just broken up. It was all cracked up. When we come to do our removals, we couldn't tie into it, so we had to cut back a little bit more to make the repairs there. So what you can see here is we had 3 items that are involved with these removals. The first one, of course, is the asphalt. And adding up all the areas and the other areas areas in green, that come to 814.05 additional tons of asphalt. The removal, which was a change order item, come to 1,475 square yards. Coulter is actual cutting of the asphalt with a coulter wheel on the front end of a loader to get a nice true edge so that we could join up our asphalt and not have it deteriorate any farther, make a much cleaner connection. If we add this all up, that comes to $60,012.45. Well, because of the heavy rains, we also had some very, very severe erosion off the end of the pad in about 3 areas. And looking at those areas, we had a contractor there. We asked him to give us some prices. He came in, he actually filled the areas with clay, because this is a compacted clay liner in this pond. So he compacted clay into it, laid a fabric down, and you can see he did a wonderful job of laying the riprap in there. We're not going to have problems here in the future. This was 3 areas that he actually did this for. He did that on a unit price basis for basically just for the riprap, no extra charge as far as the clay liner. He did it all as a lump sum, or not as a lump sum price, but as a unit price per ton. So that is the change order. It comes to a total of $61,439.47. And I would gladly take any questions, if you have any.
Yeah, is the reason for the breakup, is that because compost sits on there over the winter from thawing and freezing, or what is the reason for the breaking up or the heaving?
It's primarily because this is actually built on an old landfill unit. So there is actually some movement yet in that material. There's quite a clay cover that's built over the top of it, plus there was approximately 18 inches of millings brought in. But as water levels change in the landfill, you know, we built this new landfill adjacent to it, the water seems to go to the lowest spot. We have some issues with some of this area just moving on us. And then of course with the heavy spring rains we had, hauling out the compost early before even some of the the compost water out early before even some of the frost was out of the ground. That definitely had a lot to do with the deterioration that we found.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Helms?
You were happy with the job that the contractor did?
They did a very good job. There was one area that I might have them come back and look at yet this year. It looked to me like maybe we were holding up a little bit of water yet, and I might have them come back in as warranty work, come in with a little grinder and grind a little bit off on one spot just to get the water to drain a little bit better. But I'm going to hold off onto it for a while. I got a year, so I'm going to hold off a little bit on that one.
Thank you. Mike, this comes with the approval of the Public Works Committee, is that correct? It does, okay. Any other questions? If not, may I have a motion then for the approval of change order number 1?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there seconded by Alderman Gizelbeck? Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number B has been pulled to a later date. Moving on to item C is change order number 3 at Midland Contracting Incorporated, Airport Improvement Project in the amount of $25,225.90. And Eric?
Hey, good evening. We have change order number 3 in front of you tonight, which comes from authorization or approval from the Public Works Committee for $25,000, $225.90. It includes 2 items: mill heaves on runway 1230 and revised markings for temporary 30 end on runway 12 or 30. The first thing is runway 1230 required some milling of some of the heaves to be done on the runway. So using some federal funds and some portion of the city funds, we did that while they were here, saving the city money and some future CIP for runway maintenance. The second one has to do with the FAA safety plan. The FAA originally signed off on the safety plan when we first got this contract started in October of last year. Since then, they've revised the safety plan and they've thought of some different things they'd like us to do on 30. So we had to do different paintings for that, and this change order includes those recommended changes the FAA wanted us to do. The total comes to about $760 of the city's proportion of that change order, and I would just seek authorization to approve the change order.
Is there a motion then for the approval of change order number 3?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Item number D is change order number 1 to AAP and Sons Construction Incorporated, and that's for the 11th Street East Storm Sewer Project in the amount of $1,074. Dave?
Good evening. This change order is for basically 2 items. One of them is a water main adjustment that the water main had to be adjusted for a clearance with the storm sewer that was being put in. We anticipated that this was supposed to be a 6-inch water main, and it turned out to be an 8-inch water main. So there was additional cost for fittings for 8-inch compared to 6-inch. So that amounted to an increase of $674 on this portion of it. The other one was for a sewer service line adjustment. They had in there for adjusting sewer services, but this particular sewer service was kind of a special situation. It was a sewer service that went into an existing lift station, so they couldn't just they had to bore a new hole into the lift station and patch the other hole. So this was for an additional $400 for that work. So this gives a total increase of $1,074, and this comes to you with the recommendation of the Public Works Committee for approval.
Is there a motion then for the approval of change order number 1 to AP and Sons Construction Incorporated? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Item number E is change order number 1 to McLaughlin Schultz Incorporated, 2007 Street and Alley Improvement Project in the amount of $2,162.40. And Dave?
This change order is for the portion of the project which was paving of 14th Avenue Northwest. When we got out to stake this project, we found that we had some difficulties with some drainage that went under a couple of the driveways on the north side of this road, and there wasn't adequate clearance to make any corrections on the culverts underneath the driveways, and they were just small culverts. So in looking at it further, we decided the best fix for this project would be to install another storm sewer pipe underneath 14th Avenue to get the drainage to the south side, which has a deeper ditch, and then we would have to also do a little deepening of the north ditch to get this water out of this area. So this change order is for the additional culvert and additional excavation to provide this additional culvert. It amounts to an increase of $2,162.40. This also comes to you with the recommendation of the Public Works Committee for approval.
Is there a motion then for the approval of the change order number 1 to McLaughlin and Schultz Incorporated? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. F is authorization for additional work to proceed on the Uptown Streetscape renovation project. That's got about 4 or 5 different items under it. We'll begin with number 1 is the additional curb and gutter replacement on North Maple in the amount of a deduct, I believe, of $710. Is that correct, Dave?
No, these are
Additions?
All additions.
They got minuses in front of them, so,
Yeah.
okay. Dave, I'll let you begin.
Good thought.
This first one is for replacing an additional 33 lineal feet of curb and gutter on North Maple. When we got to looking at the plans and looking at the site, we only had 33 feet on the whole block on the one side that didn't have actual curb and gutter. It had straight curb, and we also found that a portion of this 33 lineal foot was the curb was poured integrally with the sidewalk. So when they tried to saw along the back side of the curb to just remove the curb, or just remove the sidewalk back of the curb, they couldn't saw deep enough because the concrete was so thick that they couldn't saw it. So we decided that the best thing we could do was replace that 33 lineal feet so that we had curb and gutter on the whole block, and that also solved the problem as far as the removal of the sidewalk. And that's for an increase of $710. You want to just go through all of these and approve them all as
You want to do them all at once, Tracy? Is that okay? All right, very good. Keep going.
Okay. The second item is for installing a handicap ramp on South Broadway. In the middle of the block, there was a portion of the curb that was out farther into the street, and as part of the project, they were removing that, what we call a bump out in the street, which will make it easier for snow removal and so forth. And it really served no purpose. So we also talked that we probably needed a handicap accessibility on that block, and in the middle of the block where we had the curb and gutter out seemed like it was a good location to put one. So this is the cost for removing additional sidewalk in order to construct the sidewalk to ADA standards. And so that's an increase of $1,133. Any questions on that one? Or the west side. There was also a fire hydrant in that was moved as part of the project. They put one in on the east side of the street instead of the one on the west side. The next item is for filling a steam manhole that isn't being used in that particular block. They will knock the top down in and put pea gravel in and replace the sidewalk on the top, and that's for an increase of $485. This is similar to what we did on quite a few of them when we had the Kemp Avenue portion of the project. I believe the next item Herb is going to explain.
Yep, I'll take it. It talks about doing a whole bunch of additional work on Broadway between Kemp and First Avenue South. This would be on the west side of Broadway, and when this project Phase 4 was originally bid, in fact, as it was designed, the business owners on the west side of the street could never decide how they wanted to deal with getting rid of 10 mature trees that had been there for over 30 years. So we went ahead and proceeded and bid it with only doing some very minor work on the west side of the street, and hoping that we'd come back and do that a different day. Once the project actually started, the Urban Renewal Board took the issue up again with the property owners, and I think Bill Riefenberger's in the audience, so he can certainly add, but between the board and staff, we probably met 3 different occasions and talked about this issue. They're probably the property owners' biggest concerns was, how much additional expense are we going to absorb because we don't know what's going to happen when you take those trees out? Well, after some pretty candid discussion, the property owners did decide it was in their best interest to proceed and hopefully get this part of this block of street done in conjunction with the rest. So that's why I'm here tonight. For about the last month, between Todd Architects and Bill and property owners and Gray Construction, we've been working on this estimate, which includes a number of things. First of all, it included, initially, Gray Construction provided us a cement quote of $1,304, which is in your packet, that talked about just some minimal sidewalk replacement so we could put lights in. This was before the property owners had actually decided to go full bore and do the whole thing. I got a couple of quotes for tree removal from arborists in town, and so for approximately $1,250, we can get 10 trees removed, and that includes grinding stumps down. And then in your packet you had a change order for $27,200 and some dollars. When city engineer and I reviewed that, we noticed that way more sidewalk was being contemplated to be removed and replaced than what we had talked about and described with the contractor, so we sent them back to the drawing board, and on your desktop is the revision to that change order for a total of $23,232, so about $4,000 less than what was originally contemplated. And that would contemplate replacing sidewalks, planting new trees, and installing tree grates on the west side of Broadway per the drawings that Todd Architect put together. The reason we're here tonight and didn't want to wait to go to Public Works is because the long straw in this process is ordering tree grates. That takes a while to get them here, so we figured if we could come to you tonight and get authorization, proceed, then we could get those ordered, and if we don't, we run the risk of probably not completing West Broadway this year, and that would certainly be both Urban Renewal Board staff's desires, and I think the contractor would probably like to be done with it too. I've gone back and between Bill and I, we've reviewed our budget for this project and its contingency, and honestly, at this point in time, to include all the change orders, including the one Dave will talk to you about here in a moment, we're still under the original amount that was budgeted last year as part of the budget process. So with that, I guess I'd entertain any questions, or Bill Riefenberger would too, but would certainly recommend your endorsement of allowing us to move forward.
I'm just curious, why did they want to take those big trees out?
I'll let Bill answer that.
Why did they or why didn't they?
Why do they want to take those big trees out?
Originally, there was prior to my being on the board, that was why that wasn't planned, because some of them didn't want to take them out. Matter of fact, most of them didn't. But the roots of those trees, and if you remember, those are above ground, there's a ring above ground. The roots of those trees are really busting up the sidewalk badly. And of course, they're grown to pretty large, completely out of size and shape of what the rest of the project that we're doing. So, and through our meetings discussing what was going to be done and what wasn't, a lot of these people came back and says, well, why aren't we getting the trees done the same as the other? And we says, well, to my understanding, you chose not to have it that way, and it kept coming back. So we said, well, let's address this issue, because we know that whatever we do now is not a permanent fix. Those trees are busting up the sidewalk, and it's going to continue to be some issues that are going to have to come back and be addressed, including under the curb, that issues we're having with them. So as far as the whole streetscape project, this will tie in everything much better on Broadway than with leaving those trees. One thing I might add to this thing is, as part of the urban renewal we've discussed, and I intend that those trees were not taken care of to start with. They should have been trimmed and stuff, and I plan to make that a part of the urban renewal, to take care of these trees and do something in the long term so that they're shaped inside and kept intact, and not just let to go willy-nilly and grow beyond, where they should have been allowed to do, because nothing got done with those. And it was kind of until they get hanging into the road where they're bothering cars or something, nothing's done with them. Well, we intend to do something more with all of these as we proceed. Seeing what's going on, I don't see why we put this investment in this and then not plan to do something to take care of that stuff. So, but without us addressing this now, we felt actually as a board and the property owners that were at the meetings that if we couldn't do this in the budget this year, that they would like to hold off on doing the Broadway project and come back and address that and get it done next year if we couldn't get it in the budget. But we are within our original budget to still get this done with this change order.
Okay, I thank you for the explanation. I was just curious, because to me, anytime you cut down a big tree in South Dakota, it's almost sacrilege,
Well, and when this subject kept coming up, and I had heard that people didn't want to take it on, it was, we're not going to try to push something onto somebody, and I certainly don't want to be out there with somebody hanging onto a tree while they're trying to cut it down. So everybody on that, property owners on that side, have all come to the meetings and are all in agreement that this is the best for the overall project for uptown.
So how many trees are we planting around town now? 100 or something like
There's
that?
45 new trees, and this will be 7 more, which will replace the 10. Those 10 will turn into 7 new ones. So,
So
it'll be
30 years from now, you're going to go around and cut all those trees down again?
well, hopefully, if we keep them in shape, we won't have to do that again. That would be my hope, anyway.
And
We
we'd
don't let
hope,
'em grow wild.
we'd hope through this process that we've planted the right type of trees for an uptown.
Well,
Okay. Any other questions for Bill?
I have a question, Bill. First of all, you and the Urban Renewal Board have done an absolutely tremendous job, and I know you've put in, you yourself plus the board has put in hours and hours and hours, and it really looks nice. The question that I have now, there's the planters on Second Street, Maple, and Broadway have waters, do they? The hanging plants?
right, those will have a watering system.
Okay, how about Kemp Avenue?
Camp has nothing now, and
Is there enough money to do that?
well, nothing that's not budgeted for, planned for now, other than it's in the thought process. And my intention is first to prove that the watering system does what it's supposed to on the other streets, and when it does, then yes, I tend to address that and see if we can retrofit Camp and deal with Camp. And some things we have already done along the way a little bit while the guys have had it open to allow for some connections on the ends of the street in planning for that, but we haven't got dealt with all the issues. There's going to be some parts of that where we might have to bust up some sidewalk to do that, and I don't want I wouldn't want to see stuff that was just put in a couple years ago get to be too extreme for that. So we are going to look at that, but there's nothing in the plans.
Okay, but thank
permanently.
you so much. You really care about the uptown, and I appreciate that.
Okay, well, thank you much.
Any other questions for Bill?
We do have one more item, Mayor,
Yes,
that
right. Go ahead.
Dave needs to discuss.
We have one more item that, or one more change order request that wasn't on the original agenda. I'd handed that out also before the meeting. this consists of replacing an additional curb and gutter on South Maple, and also filling some additional steam manholes and a small amount of additional sidewalk. This curb and gutter, this 69 feet and the other 20 feet are the same type of situation we ran into on the 33 foot in the earlier change order. This is where curb and gutter and the straight curb and sidewalk were poured together, and it's so thick that they can't saw through it. They just didn't form the back side underneath the curb, and they just have a big bunch of concrete there that they couldn't go through. And it looks like it from the top, like it was separate, because they made a joint there, but the joint isn't cracked, and because of all the concrete there. So there's an additional 69 feet of curb and gutter that we'd be putting in, and there's in another location on that same block, there's 20 feet of straight curb that we would replace. It's just a short section of straight curb. And there are 3 steam manholes, and there's also an additional 27 square feet of bad sidewalk by the museum, which is city property that we're wanting to replace additional sidewalk because it's heaved and has problems with the joints. So this is an increase of $4,002 for all of this change order. All of the first 3 portions of the change order, the first 3 items, come to you with the recommendation of the Public Works Committee for approval. The last 2 are items that we have bypassed the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Dave. May I have a motion then for the approval of these additional works for the Uptown Streetscape renovation project, items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Herb. Moving on to item number 11, consideration of contracts. Number A is the approval of the agreement with Austin Engineering to study the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad crossings for a fee not to exceed $13,800. Herb?
Again, thank you, Mayor. We're asking for approval of the agreement with Austin Engineering to review some at-grade rail crossings in town. The reason for this is the city's being told as we proceed with our Southern Connector design and environmental process that the city will be required to close an at-grade. It's not staying on. There we go. As part of the environmental process, what we found out is the Burlington Northern doesn't allow new crossings without either the elimination of a crossing or the creation of an overpass. We had some suggestions early on in the environmental process of what we staff thought were some reasonable alternatives. The BN didn't agree with us and stayed firm in their position. The city, I will tell you, even probably up till now, has been opposed to the idea because we consider all of our rail crossings viable, but certainly aren't resistant to looking at alternatives. We asked the DOT, for some assistance, and what they suggested that this is probably a city issue and that we really should deal with it. Although the DOT has said that there are safety funds available, depending on the direction the city chooses to take down the road in dealing with our crossing issue. Meanwhile, the segment 2A, which is the second segment of the South Connector construction, is heavily dependent on an at-grade rail crossing. We're fairly confident, based on numbers we've seen, that construction of an overpass as part of the project would certainly not help that project's progress along, would probably kill it in all honesty. Mayor Fox held a meeting last month with a number of stakeholders and to include a couple council people. And after a pretty lengthy discussion and quite a bit of brainstorming, the consensus of that group was the city needs to do whatever it needs to do to deal with the rail crossing issue so as to not hold up and, more importantly, not to stop the Southern Connector project. I want to remind both the council and the viewing public that the city's constructing the South Connector because of safety issues on Highway 212, the high volume of traffic that we already have and the anticipated increase out 20 years, specifically all the additional truck traffic as our city continues to grow, especially as our industrial section in the south of town continues to grow. There's some pretty major projects upcoming that are not going to decrease the number of trucks on 212 by any means. So the construction of the South Connector is certainly very important to get at least some, if not all, of the trucks off of Highway 212. That's really our intent. It's been the city's intent along those lines since I got here back in 2001. The stakeholder group recommended that the city hire a consultant to review some alternatives associated. There's 7 different rail crossings in town, and I'm not going to try to get into detail tonight about the eaches of each rail crossing because they're all unique and different and based on elevation and height and number of cars that go through them and that. But what we did is we asked Austin Engineering to provide us a quote pretty rapidly, which they did, and it's in your packet. We discussed this issue with the Public Works Committee on July 24th, and it comes with a recommendation for approval. So tonight I'd ask for your recommendation to allow Austin Engineer to review the various alternatives and costs related to rail crossings not to exceed a cost of $13,800.
Thank you, Herb. Is there a motion then for the,
I will make that motion.
motion by Alderwoman York, is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any further questions or discussion?
Just a comment, this is going to be one of the next huge deals for the city of Watertown, so it's certainly nothing that the council, I'm sure, wants to be tackling, but we have to, and we had to make that decision quite quickly. Otherwise, that southern bypass would have come to a screeching halt, and we didn't want to see that happen. So it's going to take the participation of a whole lot of people in town because it's going to affect every resident in Watertown, which one of those railroad crossings are affected. And so we're going to be asking for public input and public support as this process goes along.
Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Herb. Item number B is the approval of an hourly fee agreement with the First District Association of Local Governments to provide the City Planning and Zoning Department with technical assistance services associated with urban planning. And Herb?
This one should be fairly quick, I would hope. We're seeking authorization to contract on an hourly basis with First District Association of Local Governments to provide technical services to the Planning and Zoning Department. What we're doing is we're looking to offset the shortfall on not having an urban planner on board. That position's currently vacant. We've discussed the idea with First District and are looking right now to probably have them provide us 8 to 10 hours a week of performing tasks such as reviewing plats, vacations of right-of-way easements, in newly developed master planning documents. Today we found out we had 3 or 4 more. I mean, they're coming in quickly with our First Avenue project having gotten a life of its own. So we certainly need that assistance. The hourly rate, as stated in the packet, is $45 per hour, which is consistent with what First District bills other entities such as Connington County for very similar services that they provide. There's certainly sufficient funds in our budget available to handle the request. I visited with the Finance Committee on July 17th, and this comes with their recommendation for approval. So I'd ask for your motion to approve this request.
Thank you, Herb. Is there a motion then for the approval of the agreement with First District Association?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Walder. Any additional questions or discussion?
Is there a time limit, year or?
We're looking to go out probably at the end of the year at least, and then we'll see where we're at that point in time.
Thank you, Herb. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Herb. Item number C is authorization for Stanton to sign, authorization for the mayor to sign an agreement to provide for the demolition and disposal of the former ice and cold storage building and disposition of the land. Stanton.
Thank you, Mayor. And that introduction is a little different than what I hope comes out of this meeting tonight. But you folks are familiar with this building since late 2005. Most of you are. We've been having conversations with committees and the full council to discuss options that may exist for dealing with the ice cold storage building. For those of you who need to get your bearings, it's that red building just east of Dempsey's, and it's tucked between the Cabinet Building and Juergens Printing. It's that red stone structure. During the discussions that we've had, the Finance Committee and the full council have indicated willingness to participate in the demolition, provided there's an economic development objective at the end of the tunnel. And tonight I'm going to ask the council to reach a decision, I hope, in this matter. I've confirmed late this afternoon that the following terms are going to be discussed tonight for your consideration. The owners, it's a couple from Sioux Falls, Deb and Duff Robinson, have agreed to convey title to the Watertown Development Company, and they've agreed that they'll accept title. And then the expectation is that Watertown Development Company will then contract for the professional services needed to demolish the structure. We anticipate that, much like the library, the demolition is going to involve two phases. First, you have to get rid of the hazardous stuff, and then it's just bring in the wrecking ball and push most of it into the ground and haul some of it away. We've retained the services with your authority of the same person who did the asbestos inspection for the library project. He's come in and done an inspection of the asbestos, and he's estimated the total cost for removal of the asbestos to be in the neighborhood of worst case scenario about $10,000. Then the one thing that's down below in the basement of this building is literally the 5,000 pound gorilla in the basement. It's a brine tank, and we've had folks up here from Safety Clean in Sioux Falls come up and do some inspection. It apparently is holding 20,000 gallons of what appears to be rainwater. But they've taken tests, the sampling information isn't done yet. But if it is, then obviously the costs of treating it and disposing it are going to be far less. If in fact it is all hazardous and all toxic, Safety Clean says the maximum cost to remove it all and treat it properly under EPA guidelines could be upwards of $40,000. But they have assured that they think that in their preliminary testing, it looks like rainwater with a little bit of sludge in the bottom. So the expectation is that cost would be far less, but I want to be out with you folks and share with you the information that I have. We have gotten estimates for destruction, the actual demolition after the hazardous material is removed, and those range from $79,850, with not counting the costs of landfill fees, which would be shared equally between the contractor and the the folks responsible for paying the bill. And there was another cost, a flat fee of $85,000. But those are contracts that the Development Corporation is going to enter into. The question for you folks to answer is the degree to which the city wants to participate. Previously, we've always talked about the idea that the city would pay half. And we have agreement with the adjacent landowners that they'll pick up the other half, the building on the north and the building on the south. And at the end, when it's all done and it's all cleaned up and it's certifiably buildable again, the Development Corporation will then convey title jointly to the two adjacent property owners, and they plan to turn it into an economic development project. So that's what's before you tonight. It's not really authorization to enter into an agreement to do anything. The city's never going to hold title. We're probably never going to enter into a contract. We just need to write a check for half the bill when it's all done.
Thank you, Stan. Well, I guess we'll begin with the motion then to split the demolition of the ice and cold storage building. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Discussion.
What participation does the owner have in this project?
Well, I guess the extent to which they've participated, they did hire Maxim Technologies. I confess, I think the bill was somewhere around $15,000, maybe a little more. They have commissioned the review to find out just what hazardous material is there and what would be necessary for the removal. We insisted that they perform that survey. and they're going to give up the land, which we also have had that appraised at your direction, and the land bare value has been appraised at $43,000. So arguably, they're in it with the inventory as well as the value of the land for that much money.
Any other comments?
Worst case scenario, what's our half gonna come to?
Well, if we did the math, 85,000 plus 49,506. I did that earlier and have already forgotten the figure and didn't write it down. 85 plus 49.
135.
Okay, so 135 divided by 2.
67. 67.
And I might also add that in the time that I've been here, I certainly couldn't count them on my fingers and toes the number of times that law enforcement has contacted my office or firefighter emergency personnel types who have either had to respond to that location or have entered and been frightened. And certainly, if any of you have been in that building, and I don't encourage you to go in, it's certainly, I've been in there a couple of times since we've been dealing with this, and it's not a safe place during the day or the night.
Tracy, where would this money come from that we'd pay for this?
Well, we obviously have not budgeted anything for this, so we would have to come up with it out of our contingency funds or reserve funds.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or questions on this item?
Another one of those things I don't think any of us want to do, but we also would like to see that cleaned up and something productive, something that's going to produce some tax revenue and be something other than an eyesore in that spot. So.
Yep. Any other comments? It's a tough decision, but I think that we have to go ahead and do it. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Stanton. Item number 12 is the approval of the contingency account budget transfer in the amount of $14,300 to the Fire Department SCBA equipment account for the purchase of 4 air packs. Mike Youngerman.
Good evening. In the process of ordering our air packs for our new ladder truck, we were informed that the National Fire Protection Agency's codes as they relate to air packs would be changing. What this means to us is that once those requirements or once those changes are made, the air packs as they come out now will not be compatible with the ones we currently have. We do have in our CIP budget for 2010 a new rescue pumper, and if we wait until that point to buy the air packs for that truck, we will actually have to look at replacing all the air packs we have currently, because one of the really critical things for us is that everything be compatible, so that in the process of changing out tanks, everything fits. So I discussed this with the Finance Committee in July, and it comes with their recommendation that we purchase 4 new packs at this point and have them on hand, so when we do get this new truck, we'll spend the money now to save a lot of money later on.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Is there a motion then for the approval of the contingency account budget transfer to the Fire Department SCBA account? Motion by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Garnos. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Item number 13 is the authorization for the Fire Department to apply for a federal SAFER grant for additional department staffing. Mike?
SAFER, which stands for SAFER, which stands for the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Responses, what the SAFER acronym stands for. That too is a federal program, which basically, in the event that we were to get this grant, they will pay half of the wages for 5 years for 2 individuals. What we're hoping to, what we're requesting is permission to apply for a grant for 2 more people. When we did our health analytics study in 2006, the recommendation was 3 full-time people and then 2 peak hour, 40-hour employees. We did get the 3 full-time as in shift firefighters. What we're looking to do is get the 2 staff or peak hour employees, and that's what we would like to apply for through the SAFER grant.
Okay, is there a motion then to allow the Fire Department to apply for the federal SAFER grant? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. If we don't get the grant, then we do not hire.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is authorization to advertise for snow removal quotes for the 2007-2008 season. I don't think there's any question as to what that's going to be used for, so if I may have a motion. So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 15 is consideration of business license applications for Lundberg Electric. That's as a gas fitter contractor for $100. Dan Gates as a gas fitter for $25, and Raymond Graber as a taxi driver for $25. Is there a motion to approve those business licenses? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 16 is the acceptance letter from the South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit for the audit of the year ended December 31, 2006. Tracy?
Thank you. At an earlier council meeting, all the council members did receive a copy of the audit report. That report has been submitted to the Department of Legislative Audit, and they have accepted that as meeting the requirements under law. So there's no action required. It's just simply a report to the council.
Thank you, Tracy. And as you told me, we were squeaky clean. Is that correct?
Very squeaky.
Very good. Thank you. Item number 17 is to acknowledge a notice of intent to conduct a lottery. That's by the Connington County Republican Central Committee and the Fraternal Order of Police for Camp Chance. May I have a motion to acknowledge those raffles?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 18 is the authorization to write off uncollectible ambulance accounts receivable in the amount of $9,499. Is there a motion to authorize the write-off? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Garnos. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 19 is a motion to approve the bills and the payroll and authorize payment. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 20 on the open, we will discuss ordinance number 07-22. That's the creating of a charter commission. You've received copies of that. What we might have some discussion on, and for your approval, does anyone have any changes that they would like to make as far as the wording?
Not as far as the wording, except for the date. Under J, it says on or before September 15, 2008, and I'm just wondering why the lateness of that date. Why can't we do something like the 1st of January?
Thank you, Mr. Heller, and Mayor, if I could, I know Gordon, we visited today about possibly revising that ordinance. When we met last time as a group, you folks offered suggestions for me as to how you wanted the ordinance to read without really any concept of when we might expect a final report from these folks. I tried to draft it just for discussion's sake to coincide with the 2009 election, and the mayor and I talked, and we accepted full well that it wouldn't make sense. Let's say hypothetically the Charter Commission comes back and say, let's change something as it relates to the function of government. What sense would it make for the voting public or for you folks or anybody who would seek elective office if one of the questions the Charter Commission puts to the people is what form of government and various changes possibly might occur, and yet they're not going to be decided until at the same time of the election. Perhaps some of you would seek to do something different in your free time. So those dates were just simply suggestions. I know Gordon is going to propose something different to perhaps coincide with the 2008 general election, November next, but I'll turn it over to him because I think he's going to fill in those blanks in the date column.
Well, just as a thought, I would anticipate a special election of recommendation by the committee or the recommendation of the council by the general public, and that seems to me you wouldn't have to wait until the general election in November of 2008 in order to do that.
That's certainly your prerogative, and
Let me address this if I can, George. Special election will cost the city approximately $6,000. And we're trying, hopefully we can stay clear of a special election and dovetail it into another election. And the most convenient one would be the general election. But if you have your original copies that were sent to you on the email, let me go over some of these new dates and might clarify some of this. Under B, the establishment would provide that the council members provide their 2 nominees to the commission by September 4th, 2007. Okay, then we can jump down to the next page under J, and that would then call for a preliminary report to be ready to be given to us July 7th, 2008. And then the final report to the city council would then be August 18th. And if you're following right along with us in J, in the event any charter revisions are proposed, such questions shall be placed on the ballot of the 2008 general election, November 4th, 2008. Now, these dates, they're not in concrete by any stretch of the imagination. What we're trying to do is make it as convenient as we can, keep us from having to finance a special election. Number 2, dovetailing it in to another election, and that general election would be the most convenient at this time. If we're wide open for changes, but we must give the commission enough time to review all the sections if they so desire.
I don't know the answer to this, but does the school board have an election in June of next year?
I don't know, George. I only talked to Cindy at the auditor's office to confirm that if the council elected to bootstrap this on with the general election, we could do that. But if somebody else knows the school board, I don't know if they do.
First of all, we're all supposing that there's going to be an election of any kind. We don't even know that there will be an election of any kind. That's, a remote chance that there would be an election, but I think putting it in with the general election in 2008 would be a good solution. That gives anybody that's running for public office for the next city election plenty of time to make their decisions.
The one thing I will point out to the council, and hopefully by another meeting I can report back to you, in a conversation with Cindy this afternoon, her concern, and I think she's going to pass it along to Chris Nelson at the Secretary of State, is if we see another general election ballot that was sort of like an 8-page menu of decisions that voters need to make. She did seem a little reluctant given that prospect, but she didn't say it wasn't impossible, but she wanted us to be mindful of the fact that last ballot was pretty well packed.
Would we like to make these dates as part of the revised ordinance, or are we like to wait till the next council meeting and have some further input?
I think for any changes, would probably have to amend the ordinance as prepared now, and which could certainly be done at the time the second reading takes place. If there are any other changes, can we discuss them now, or we can discuss them in committees? Yeah, any questions?
I guess just so the minutes of the meeting are clear, Gordon, I presume then that this is supposed to be first reading of ordinance 0722 this evening.
That's my understanding.
But we're going to be changing the dates that are on this original draft.
Would the council prefer second reading occur at the August 20th meeting? Do you want second reading then, or do you want this to go through the Finance and Public Works committees? I wish you'd just state your preference. If you prefer we place it on the next agenda for public hearing, we'll do that.
It'd be nice to have some time in committee to discuss this, so could we discuss it in Public Works and also in Finance Committee, and then go to the next council meeting?
Yeah, that would be the September 4th meeting,
Okay.
which means that paragraph B, Gordy, will have to change as well.
Yeah, I don't want to disagree with you, Mayor, but everybody that's on the committees are right here anyway,
Okay.
so.
Okay, I'm very open, whatever you folks would want. I just thought we'd have some time to really discuss it and that, but if we would like, why, we'll just go with the second meeting in August then. And that's where we'll make any amendments to this then, is that correct? Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
If in paragraph D, I would recommend that the council hire the secretary to take the minutes of all the meetings, simply because if we appoint somebody in that committee, we're going to lose a committee member. If any of us have ever been secretaries, you're spending most of your time listening and writing. And so I would like to see us hire a secretary for those meetings. They send out the notices and they do all the kinds of things that somebody's going to have to do. That would be my suggestion. In paragraph E, can we word that somehow so that they have the flexibility of moving the meeting place? I look at this room, and with 21 people plus the 10 alternates, it's going to be pretty crowded. And then if we invite the public, of course, I don't know where everybody's going to be. Plus, you're working around several posts. It's just not a very conducive place to do a good meeting. I would suggest that we go to the library. Perfect place, lots of room. The screens are there for anything they want to display. That would be to my suggestion. But if we could leave it open for the group to do, that would probably be the best way. You know, we've got schools to go to. We got lots of places that's better than this. Yeah, keep going.
Those are both good suggestions, and they can be presented to us in amendment form at our next meeting then, as we prepare to pass the second reading.
Okay.
I'd like to hear what what are some more, Russ?
I don't want to get carried away here. He did a nice job writing this, and I have to commend him for this. Under G on vacancies, I understand the alternate. However, if one of the members of the committee has to be gone away from a meeting, I would like to see that alternate step in his place.
I don't see any alternates on here.
I think, aren't we appointing one alternate?
No.
No?
No, we're appointing two.
Two members.
Each alderperson appoints two people from his ward.
I've got that. Okay, so we aren't appointing an alternate.
No, we're not.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Russ. Any other comments or discussion before we move on?
I would just make one comment, Russ,
Yes.
and I appreciate the thorough review that you obviously gave it. The suggestion for City Hall was that I wasn't in a position where I could speak for any other building or any other space. I thought I could for this one, but I agree, the space in here is rather confined. With regard to the payment of the secretary, I tried to leave the language in subsection H loose enough that such that the council could authorize reimbursement of lots of expenses, publication, duplication, anything that they have to, this commission might rightfully incur. In language says they receive no compensation, however, the city council shall reimburse the reasonable expenses of the commission. If you folks think having a secretary at meetings is reasonable, obviously this ordinance would give you the authority to reimburse those expenses.
There would be no need to elect a secretary then.
you could still elect a secretary who would be responsible for dispersing to members of the commission various things, but you could hire a minute taker. So you'd still want a secretary to deal with the day-to-day handling of commission business. I presume that would be part of their function, but the actual compensation to someone to sit back as Teresa does in our meetings and take minutes, you could certainly authorize that of the commission.
As long as we spell that out, that'd be.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Stanton. Any other comments or questions before we move on?
I just ask, if does any of the council members want the, new dates repeated?
I would like them repeated.
Okay, under B, the nominees should be in by September 4th. On under J, the preliminary reports, July 7th, 2008. Final report to the council, August 18th, 2008. Placed on the ballot in the 2008 general election set for November 4th, 2008.
You get those, Carol, or?
Yes, I got these. I guess I didn't realize it was gonna get extended out this far. That's a year late.
But considering all the sections of the home rule charter and the fact that this only allows, 10 monthly meetings, that is probably limited time the way it is.
And I would guess they could finish their work before that if they so desired. They just have to, that would be their deadline. They would have to have it done by. If they finished it in 6 months, good.
So be it. Yeah, because it does say, Carol, on or before. So it could be 3 months later if they so choose, so.
Now, have the names been coming into your office, Paul?
You're the only one that's given me 2 names, Carol, so.
That's why I asked the question.
The names aren't even due until September 4th.
Thank you. Any other questions then before we move on? Very good. We'll go under old business. I'd like to begin with asking your permission to increase the Urban Renewal Board from 7 to 9 members as requested by the Urban Renewal Board President, Bill Riefenberger. And Stan, would you read the section that deals with our authority to go ahead and allow that?
Well, the mayor posed the question to me when the request was made to add 2 additional members of the Urban Renewal Board. Can we do that? And I've visited with you folks in the past about how the Urban Board was created and the authorities that you've delegated to them. And state law does indicate that if you create, if the governing body elects to have an Urban Renewal Board carry out those functions, the governing body shall appoint the Board of Commissioners of the Urban Renewal Board, which shall consist of not less than 5, no more than 9 commissioners, which number shall be determined by the local governing body. So I'm satisfied that if you want to honor the Urban Renewal Board and the mayor's request tonight to amend the number of Urban Renewal Board members, you can simply do that in a separate motion before you take action on the appointment of the boards and commissions, and then approve the Urban Renewal Board with those 2 additional members.
Thank you, Stanton. Could I have a motion then to approve the additional 2 members to the Urban Renewal Board to increase the total membership from 7 to 9? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, I'd like to have you approve the names on the boards and commissions that I have given to you now, that I've given to you for some time. I've also provided a list, hard copy. Could I have a motion then for those approval of those names? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 22 is number new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? If not, we'll move on to 23 is liaison member reports. Are there any reports from any members? We will need to go into executive session in regards to contract negotiation, and we may be taking action when we come out of executive session. Could I have a motion to go into executive session, please? Motion by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. All in favor say aye. Opposed? We are in executive session. Thank you. Okay. We are out of executive session, and I would ask that for a motion to allow the mayor to sign an agreement with Darren Lacqua to purchase 2 acres in the Andrews Industrial Park. Is that correct, Stanton?
Approximately 2
Approximately
acres.
2 acres for $14,000 per acre. And is there a motion to that effect, please? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Have a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
That would be till August 20th at 7 p.m.
Yes, August 20th.
Doesn't say that on your agenda, but that is.
Okay, August 20th at 7 p.m., okay. A motion by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a seconded by Alderman Solom? Second. Yay, we got one. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.